Namaste everyone and welcome to the revision series of IIM Kozhikode BMS program aptitude test. We just had a revision session of quantitative ability and I am here to discuss with you the most expected, the most important questions of verbal ability section. So this is the fifth session in the series of revision for this exam. This is gaining a lot of traction. This exam is gaining a lot of popularity among the undergraduate students. After IIM Indore and IIM Rohtak and JIPMAT, IIM Kozhikode really is something which students should aspire for. Although this program seems to be a little expensive, but the return on investment which they make commitment for is really worth it. And the kind of experience, the kind of knowledge and the kind of alumni status which you will enjoy after becoming a student body in the IIM Kozhikode is worth spending this much of amount. And obviously the conveners have also made a commitment about scholarships. So if you are really good at academics or you have excellent performance in certain things and you are a student who can vouch for this scholarship, then you must try your luck. All right, so let's start with the discussion of questions. So as I have told you earlier as well that there are 50 questions which are asked in verbal section, and the level of difficulty which we have discussed in the questions of PYQs of the last year paper, the level of difficulty is not that very high as it is in IIM Indore. Yesterday we discussed reading comprehension section. So the passages are doable. Most of like there were 3 RCs. 2 RCs were of moderate length and easy to understand topics. One was a little lengthier, but then the questions are quite doable. What really is troubling the students and they are messaging me for is grammar section and the vocabulary section. So although I have taken separate revision sessions on grammar and the vocabulary, these were the session 1 and session 2 of the revision series. So you can go back to those videos and you can watch those videos, solve the questions along with me and try and understand the explanation which I am giving for each and every grammar question. So in to address this problem of yours that you need more practice of grammar and vocabulary, today I am here with a good number of questions, almost 50 plus questions on grammar and vocabulary and all the possible variety in which they can ask you questions. So today we will be discussing only grammar vocabulary questions so that you get that sense of satisfaction and confidence while you are solving those questions. All right. So let's begin. Give me a thumbs up if you can see me and you can hear me. Everything good? Please like the channel and subscribe to the channel if you like these sessions and our efforts. So let's start the discussion with questions on idioms and phrases. Thank you very much for confirming. Let's begin with the discussions. You can see a question displayed on the screen. There is a sentence which is using an idiomatic expression. Can you identify that and the meaning of that idiom? After months of negotiation, the two tech giants finally found common ground on the patent sharing agreement. So, finding a common ground, that means something which is of mutual benefit to each other. Common ground, common platform, that is something which we need to come together or on common line or on a same line. Alright, so that means something which is mutually beneficial. Now A says to purchase identical pieces of real estate. So this is not talking about real estate, although it is talking about ground, but it has nothing to do with real estate. To discover areas of agreement or mutual interest. To argue until a compromise is forced. So this is not actually talking about forceful agreement or acquisition or something like, sabotaging something. It is basically coming to a mutual agreement. To clear land for a new corporate facility is absolutely wrong. So the answer should be B. Finding common ground means means that people are talking and coming to an agreement wherein they are agreeing to benefit each other. Yes, your answer is absolutely correct. The answer is B. Next question displayed on the screen. Have a look. Several developing nations are concerned that the new trade tariff will level the playing field only for the wealthier economies. So, developing nations have a concern that the new trade tariff, which has been, imposed by America, specifically Donald Trump, it's basically set to level things up, but then they fear that it will be benefiting only the developed nations or the wealthier economies. So now we are using this level the playing field. That means making something comfortable for the other person to work, isn't it? So leveling up the playing field means what? To make the conditions fair and equal for everyone so that both the teams can play fairly well and, find equal opportunity to win. It's not about new sports stadium. It's not about eliminating all rules or destroy existing infrastructure. When you see the last year's PYQs, you will find that such kind of idiomatic expressions have been asked in 2 to 3 questions. In fact, these are idiomatic expressions which are generally used in corporate world. So they will be obviously asking you questions or idioms based on what they use regularly. So the research team had to go back to the drawing board after their initial clinical trial yielded inclusive data. So go back to the drawing board. You can say go back to square one. This was actually asked in the 2025 question of BMS aptitude test. Back to square one. Then you can even say start from scratch. Start from the scratch. Yes, so you are correct. The answer in fact is B, to start over with a new plan from the beginning. Okay, next question. During the crisis, the Prime Minister was accused of means blame for. Passing the buck. Passing the buck basically means passing the buck to regional governors instead of taking federal action. So the answer should be to shift or responsibility or blame to someone else, and that is what is called passing the buck. In the childhood, you must be playing that game, passing the parcel, wherein you pass the hanky or maybe whatever is in your hand, ball or chocolate, to the other person, and whosoever gets it into the last has to bear the punishment. So that is passing the buck. That means you're blaming others for something which has gone wrong. Next question. Before we pitch this strategy to the board of directors, we need to touch base with our legal department. So touch base, or you could say catch up, or maybe you can say reconnect. So the answer should be to briefly contact or check in with someone. That means just drop in to meet someone for a short period of time, just to check on something or maybe get some inputs on something and move on. So that is touch base. So the professor's groundbreaking theory, what kind of theory it is? A groundbreaking theory. That means very successful. something which is written history. On economic cycles began to gain traction among international policy makers. That means it is attracting people's attention or gain lot of support from people. All right. So gain traction means to get uh, a lot of support, a lot of attention. So the answer should be to become popular, accepted, or gather momentum. To face severe criticism is opposite. When we say severe criticism, then it will be to face the music. That is to face criticism or to face the consequences of something which has gone wrong. Okay. This is easy one, a calculated risk. So, launching the product ahead of schedule was a calculated risk, but it secured them dominant market share. So, when you take a calculated risk, that means it is a risk. It is a chance that you're taking, but it is well calculated, well evaluated. You have checked for yourself that whether it is getting into any kind of trouble or no, or if at all you can handle it or no. All right, so that is what is called calculated risk. For example, when you go to swimming pool and take a dive from a height, you know that you can handle it. You are a swimmer. You understand how to get into water and then come out of water. You know that you won't get drowned because you have that practice. So that's a calculated risk because there could be any kind of an accident which can happen. Ultimately, it's water and ultimately it's height. So any small mistake in the jump or in the stroke can actually lead to a very hazardous thing, but then that's a calculated risk. Same thing is done by people who deal with share market or trading. So they know the in and out of the market and they know how to calculate the risk associated with these startups or maybe new ventures, and then they invest in it and to earn profit. So that is launching the product ahead of schedule was a calculated risk. So it is not reckless. It is not hazard that result in massive financial loss. It is chance taken after carefully weighing the pros and cons. So diplomats warned that any military intervention in the region could open a Pandora's box of unpredictable ethnic conflict. So this gives you good hint. This is a good hint. Even if you do not know what a Pandora's box is or a can of worms is, then too you can answer this by just this hint. Unpredictable ethnic conflicts. This is to discover a hidden trash. A hidden trash basically is a gold mine or maybe a treasure trove. For this, we use the word gold mine. Or you can say treasure trove. So, to create a situation that causes many complex and unexpected problems, that is, you open a can of worms. एक बार प्रॉब्लम शुरू होती है तो खुलती चली जाती है, प्रॉब्लम्स होती चली जाती है. जैसे अगर एक डिब्बा है जिसमें बहुत सारे कीड़े हैं तो एक बार अगर वो खुल गया तो कीड़े चारों ओर फैलते चले जाते हैं. सो दैट इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड अ पेंडोरास बॉक्स. इसकी एक कहानी भी है, कभी फुर्सत हुई तो सुनाऊंगी. इट्स अ ग्रीक माइथोलॉजिकल स्टोरी कि बोला गया था कि भाई इस बॉक्स को खोलना नहीं, अगर खोला तो तुम्हारे लिए बहुत प्रॉब्लम हो जाएगी. पर वो क्या होता है कि पेंडोरा की बहुत ज्यादा इंक्विजिटिवनेस रहती है, उसे मालूम करना होता है कि इसमें आखिर है क्या, तभी मैं किसी को दूं, नहीं तो मैं नहीं दूंगी. दिया क्यों गया है, इसमें है क्या. जैसे ही बॉक्स को खोलती है उसमें से सिवाय मुसीबतों के और कुछ भी नहीं निकलता. तो मतलब दिस इज अ स्टोरी ऑफ बिलीफ एंड फेथ दैट व्हेन यू डाउट द word of God, you have your own anxiety, so you start creating problems in your own life. So that is what is Pandora's box. Read between the lines. This is a very common idiomatic expression we generally use and keep using it all the time. To look beneath the surface, superficially नहीं देखना है, उसके नीचे तक समझना है कि हो क्या रहा है. Read between the lines is generally called for inference. Infer. Understand implicit meaning. So look for hidden implied meaning which is not stated directly. Correcting spelling and grammatical errors is to edit and not to read between the lines. Skip every other sentence to save time. This is what is called scanning, which you should not do. All right, so the startup decided to pivot its business model towards AI software after hardware sales plummeted. What is plummeted? Plummeted is taking a nosedive. That is a very steep downfall. That is plummet. And we are supposed to solve this, answer this, pivot. To pivot is to take U-turn. Or maybe you can say shift gears. So, to completely shut down operations and declare bankruptcy, no. To spin around repeatedly during a presentation, so this is actually the physical one, which is wrong. To rapidly change directions or strategy to adapt to the new situations, that is what is called to pivot. So, the political analysts state that the upcoming election is too close to call for both candidates tied in the polls. So, uh, too close to call is something like it's very, very near, it's a very close call to take, or maybe, it's the edge of the knife, or maybe it's a toss kind of a situation, 50-50, we cannot say anything about it. So that uncertainty, because the thing is very, very close to you or maybe nearing you, that means too close to take a call. So basically it is impossible to predict the outcome due to even numbers. You need to take this hypothesis with a grain of salt because the sample size used was incredibly small. To take something with a grain of salt means what? To view with doubt, or maybe to view with criticism, not on face value. So that is to take something with a grain of salt or a pinch of salt. Alright, that means you're not ready to accept it as it is said. You are thinking and you are evaluating it, how much of it is true and how much of it is a story. So that is to take with a grain of salt or pinch of salt. So seasoning to a meal is to physically, explaining it. Completely accept the data as absolute truth is beguiling. To view information with skepticism or doubt. Discard research finding entirely? No. So this is more of throwing in the dustbin. Next question. Think outside the box. think outside the box is fresh or innovative ways. Maybe to solve a problem or taking things, unconventional ways to solve a problem or think about a problem. That is, think outside the box, to take a fresh approach or maybe break the mold. So dead giveaway basically is an open secret, or maybe you can say something which has been revealed, or itself it is revealing the truth. For example, if someone has murdered and the weapon of murder is in his hand, then that's a dead giveaway. That means there is no question of not taking it as a murder, because everything is very, very evidential. Okay, so that is what is called a dead giveaway. So an item distributed completely free of charge. This is free gift or freebies. Freebie. A secret operation conducted at night. A highly dangerous military maneuver. An unmistakable sign or clear indication of something wrong. So that is D.
Recorded too short.
To raise a red flag is a very common idiomatic expression. We keep using it for warning signs and signals. Sudden decline in student enrollment numbers raise the red flag for university administration. So basically this is a warning sign. Where is the warning sign? Yes, there. Signal a warning that something is wrong or dangerous. Okay, so that was for idiomatic expressions, and if you look at the 2025 kind of idiomatic expressions that they have used, you will find that mostly they ask idioms based on corporate world business, vocabulary, or it is associated with politics and academics, or general, usage of idiomatic expressions which we use in media, news, and all. So it's not the kind of boring, highly academic or literary idioms that they ask. Don't go for preparing on those terms. Go with all these idiomatic expressions which you generally find in the newspaper, which are pertaining to the themes of politics, sports, business, economy, geopolitics. So these are the ways in which they are asking the idiomatic expressions. All right. Let's now move to the another section of your exam, and that is the grammar section. So they have asked quite a good number of grammar questions, but in different variations. One particular variety of question or one pattern of question is not repeated for more than 4 to 5 questions. But then in all dekha jaye to there are at least 15, 17 questions of grammar. So what I will be doing with you is not just the variety which they are asking there, but largely we will be focusing on the conceptual understanding. Because if I talk about grammar, there are certain variety or certain errors which they keep repetitively ask, and these are mostly tenses. And with tenses, I also mean modifiers, law of parallelism, then subject verb agreement, that would be numbers of noun, pronoun, and verb, concord. Then another very famous and the favorite variety which they ask generally is that of conjunctions. Proper usage of conjunctions. Conjunctions like but, however, no sooner than, hardly when. So these coordinating conjunctions and the relative conjunctions, they generally ask questions on them, the correct usage of conjunctions. Another one is proper usage of prepositions or phrasal verbs. So these are largely, their focus is on these, because mostly people make mistakes in using or making sentences while using these grammatical concepts. So that is the reason why they ask such kind of questions more frequently. So what I have done is I've come up with the conceptual questions which will help you retain those concepts. So we'll move towards the complex structuring of the or pattern of the questions, but first we will understand the concept and then we will move towards it. Okay, so are you with me? Only that I want you to be quick while answering the question. I have a lot of questions today to discuss with you. So you have to fill in the blank with the correct pair of conjunctions. What should be used here in the sentence? Dash had the CEO announced his resignation. Dash the company stock plummeted in after hours trading. So what should be the correct answer here? So we have hardly than, no sooner than, scarcely than. So with hardly and scarcely, we use when. No sooner always goes with than. Not only goes with but also. And not only but also is only for a certain condition wherein not only this happened but also that happened. So here it is not the case. Here there are two things happening simultaneously. One, CEO announcing his resignation, and then company stock is dropping down, something which has happened with HDFC Bank. So the moment resignation was out, everyone was talking about it, and next the share market dropped the share of the company. And so these two things are happening simultaneously. So we will use no sooner than. No sooner had the CEO announced his resignation than the company stock plummeted in after hours trading. Let's move to the next question. The committee determined that the proposed legislation was dash economically unfeasible, politically disastrous. So there are two things associated with the proposed legislation and both are negative, economically unfeasible and politically disastrous. So if I say either or, then it would be choice between two and we are not making choice here. Neither nor is a negative choice. That means I don't want to choose any of these. So both these cannot be the answer. Now for both, we do not use as well as, we use and. Both dash and dash. Both Ram and Sham. Both sweet and sour. So we always use and with both, not as well as. So the only answer we have is not only but also. So the committee determined that proposed legislation was not only economically unfeasible but also politically disastrous. Always keep in mind the structure of not only but also. Not only economically, that means it is an adverb. So not only adverb but also adverb. That should be kept in mind. Whatever structure or the form of verb is with not only, the same gets associated with but also. Not only noun but also noun. Not only verb but also verb. That should be kept in mind. That's a very commonly asked error in the exams. Next question. I want you to thorough the usage of conjunctions. Dash the Renaissance spurred a revolution in the arts and sciences. The industrial age fundamentally altered the socio-economic fabric of society. So, there is a comparison of Renaissance movement with industrial age. So, whenever we have a strong comparison happening, what should we use? We use like, similarly, just as, so, or as but not thus. While is for comparison in the negative sense and therefore is for conclusion. So whenever we compare two things strongly, then we use just as and so. Just as the Renaissance spurred a revolution in arts and sciences, so the industrial age fundamentally altered the socio-economic fabric of society. We can use like or similarly, but one of them, not both of them. I could say the Renaissance spurred a revolution in arts and sciences. Similarly, the industrial age fundamentally altered the socio-economic fabric of society. That's perfectly well. Or, likewise, I can say the Renaissance spurred a revolution in the art and science. Likewise, the industrial age fundamentally altered the socio-economic fabric of society. But never in this pairing format. Alright. I can talk about similarly or likewise, but then I don't need any blank here. But because there are two blanks, I need to have a pair which goes, both the words should go together, coupling. The maestro's performance was dash, unparalleled brilliance. Then dash, the typically ruckus audience was left entirely speechless. So, first is this maestro. Who is a maestro? Maestro is an excellent performer of art, specifically a musician or dancer or a person who sings. So associated with arts. So जिसको हम बोलते हैं guru. ठीक है? So that is maestro, a person who is excellent in that art. So his performance, or the performance of that artist, was so brilliant that the ruckus audience, ruckus is शोरगुल करने वाली, चिल्ला चोट करने वाली ऑडियंस, बहुत ज्यादा बुरिश ऑडियंस, ठीक है, वो भी बिल्कुल स्पीचलेस हो गई, सन्नाटा हो गया ऑडियंस में बिल्कुल. They were so engrossed and enchanted by the performance. So obviously I need to say so unparalleled, नहीं, not so unparalleled brilliance नहीं बोल सकते, sorry. So it should be such unparalleled brilliance that the typically ruckus audience was left entirely speechless. अगर मुझे so लगाना है तो मुझे क्या करना पड़ेगा? The maestro's performance was off नहीं बोलेंगे, फिर बोलेंगे was so brilliant that, so अगर वहां पे so brilliant होता या अनपैरेलल्ड ब्रिलियंस लिखा हुआ है, इसकी जगह अगर ब्रिलियंट लिखा होता और ऑफ नहीं होता तो मैं सो लिख सकती थी. द मेस्ट्रोस परफॉर्मेंस वाज ऑफ सच अनपैरेलल्ड ब्रिलियंस दैट द टिपिकली रकस ऑडियंस वाज लेफ्ट एंटायरली स्पीचलेस. अब ये TOO2 और TO2 कब यूज करते हैं हम? ये हमेशा नेगेटिव कॉन्टेक्स्ट में यूज होता है. जैसे the music was too loud to be enjoyed. Now what is the meaning? Too loud to be enjoyed? That means it was so loud that I could not enjoy it. I was frustrated with it. So whenever we use TOO, it is generally in the negative context. Next question. The board of directors must decide by tomorrow dash they will approve the controversial merger, risk a hostile takeover by their main competitor. तो यहाँ पर चॉइस आ रही है, कोई दो में से कोई एक चीज चूज करनी पड़ेगी, या तो अप्रूव करेंगे मर्जर और या तो फिर एक होस्टाइल टेक ओवर होगा. तो क्या हम यहाँ पर इफ एंड यूज कर सकते हैं? नहीं. क्या हम यहाँ पे नीदर नॉट यूज कर सकते हैं? क्योंकि यहाँ पर नेगेटिव तो है नहीं, दो में से कोई एक चीज चूज तो करनी पड़ेगी. मस्ट डिसाइड, तो यहाँ नहीं करने वाली कॉन्टेक्स्ट तो नहीं है. ईदर के साथ बट नहीं आता, और आता है, तो we'll have whether and or. The board of directors must decide by tomorrow whether they will approve the controversial merger or risk a hostile takeover. Question number 6. Dash had the virtuoso begun to play the delicate first movement. A cell phone rang in the audience, shattering the tense silence. So we see that in the options we have when, and here we have then. So we understand that hardly is always supported with when, no sooner is always paired with than, as soon as okay, so as soon as doesn't go with any pairing. So we have hardly in when. Hardly had the virtuoso begin. As soon as is also correct, but then I don't need this reverse, structure of verb first and then the subject. But here it is had the virtuoso began. So I need to have this hardly here. Hardly had the virtuoso begun to play the delicate first movement when a cell phone rang in the audience and shattering the tense silence. As soon as the virtuoso began or had begun the performance. As soon as the virtuoso had begun the performance, we don't use any other conjunction here. We generally put a comma and then say a cell phone rang. So as soon as can be used, but I don't need to have this reverse structure. I will use the subject and then the verb. But with hardly, I have to use the verb first and then the subject. So that ways we should select A as the answer and not D as the answer. Now the context of the sentence is despite extensive interrogation. Despite means what? Despite means what? It's a negative conditional word. Despite so much of interrogation, the suspect did not reveal anything. So the context automatically comes out of not revealing it and not revealing it, isn't it? So I have choice of either or neither. Either or is for positive choice. Neither nor is for negative choice. Because we are using despite here, we need a negative word here. So it should be neither nor. Now there are two things happening and I have to parallelly compare them. So I should use the more. The more I try to resolve our problems, the more things get worse. Similarly, the more ambitious scientists delve into the profound complexities of mechanics or quantum mechanics, the more baffled they become by its inherent paradoxes. The more we try, the more we fail, is what is the context here. Can we use however much ambitious scientists delve into the profound complexities of quantum mechanics? So delve into something. यहाँ तक का पूरा नहीं पढ़ेंगे. We'll read it as something. So the however much ambitious scientists delve into something, still baffled they became. So ये still नहीं हो सकता. Still is for continuation of something positive, isn't it? So we do not have a positive context in the in the next part of the sentence also. So this will not work. Although is not followed with nevertheless, it is followed by yet. And baffled they became is there. So it should be they became baffled. Then we'll use yet. In yet, we do not have reverse structure. The fiercely independent author stated she dash self-publish her controversial novel dash compromise her artistic vision to satisfy a mainstream publisher. So we can say she prefers to publish her controversial novel, but we do not use rather than together. We will have rather do this than do that. So the context expressed requires rather than. It is okay, we prefer to, but then we do not say rather than. We can even use had better, but then or will not fit in the next blank. The fiercely independent author stated she had better self-publish her controversial novel than compromise her artistic view. Then it would have been correct. So this should be she would rather do this over this. So that is than. The intricate details of the ancient weathered manuscript. So the manuscript is faded or weathered away. So weathered manuscripts were so faded that even the most advanced digital imaging could barely decipher them. Decipher, or many people say decipher, that is to read. Okay, so this is another variety of grammar. Till now, we were dealing with conjunctions, specifically the pairing of conjunctions which goes together. Now we'll be moving towards more mixed variety of grammatical questions. Now, what's the pattern of question here? That there is a sentence and a part of the sentence is underlined, for which there are four ways of improving it. So you have to choose which one is the correct one. Rejecting the standard paradigm, the new theoretical model was developed by the research team that accounted for the anomalous quantum behavior. Anomalous is maybe absurd or abnormal behavior. Now, you have to understand rejecting the standard paradigm. Who is rejecting the standard paradigm? The model is rejecting, or the research team is rejecting. Who is rejecting the standard paradigm? The research team. So, research team should be for, after this comma. Now, the research team is here, the research team is here. So, we cannot go with A or C. Now, let's compare B and D. Where is the difference? The difference is the research team developed a new theoretical model that accounted for and it accounts for. So, that accounted for is correct. This is wrong. We do not need this and it. These are redundant. We could have used that accounts for. But then we cannot use S also because it is past tense. And this is present tense, which does not suit the context. So the answer should be B. Okay, so focus on this verb insist. Now this is an indirect speech of a direct dialogue. Maybe the board of directors said that CEO resign immediately and full financial audit should be conducted before the next quarterly review. Now we are reporting it. So it is in reported speech now, indirect speech now, and I'm using the word insisted. So whenever this is a case wherein there is a direct speech and we are converting it into indirect speech or reported speech, we use certain words like ordered, insisted, requested, asked. So in these cases, we do not use ing form or maybe any other form, but the base form of the verb. All right, because it is an order, it is an insist. The person has insisted. It's an order. All right, or a request. So we, report it in the same, base form. All right. So insisted on can be correct. Insisted that could be correct. Let's see this on one first. So the board of directors insisted on the CEO resigning immediately. This is correct. And a full financial audit being conducted. Now this being conducted is wrong because there is no ing form here. If it was is conducting, then the reported speech would be being conducted. So this is getting wrong here. Now we have that the CEO should resign immediately and a full financial audit to be conducted. So this should, because we already have insisted, so we cannot have a requesting should here. The board of directors insisted that the CEO resign immediately, not resigns. So this is present tense, which is wrong in reported speech. So it should be that the CEO resign immediately and that a full financial audit be conducted. So it should be C. It could have been even that the board of directors insisted that the CEO resigns immediately. Resign ही होगा. Insisted the CEO to resign immediately. Then it would have been correct. But that's not the case in any of the options. The newly discovered avian species is not only more elusive than any bird in the region, but also more visually striking than its migratory counterparts. See, it's a comparison and a comparison of a complete group with another group. Newly discovered avian species, that is bird species. This is not only more elusive than any bird, not any bird, any other bird. इसका बहुत सिंपल सा एग्जाम्पल जो ग्रामर बुक में हमेशा आता है, शाम is smarter than any student in the class. So this is a wrong structure. We need to have any other student because Sham also is a student. So Sham is smarter than any other student in the class. Similarly, this avian species or bird species is more elusive than any other bird species in the region. So you can see that that has happened only here. Now you have to understand the classical pianist interpretation of the sonata was as technically precise. So as technically precise as. So this as is missing. If not more so than the performance of her legendary mentor. So as good as legendary mentor, if not more than him. So now we need to have as technically precise as. So these three have it. This one does not have. Now in B, it says more precise than. We do not have an expression like more precise. Precise means what? What is precise? Most accurate. Precise means most accurate, isn't it? Most resembling. So we cannot have more most resembling. That's a wrong usage. This is an incomplete statement. So the answer should be A. Architects today are designing buildings that are both highly sustainable and now whenever we use both and, again a law of parallelism follows and whatever is the structure of both should be followed by and. Both highly sustainable and structured. So they are structured and structured to withstand seismic activity. So both highly sustainable and या तो as well as आ गया, so that is wrong. For both highly sustainable and structured to withstand, यहाँ पर both है ही नहीं, and के साथ also use किया हुआ है, is wrong. So the answer should be C. Both highly sustainable and structured to withstand. So both adjective and adjective, or in fact adverb first and then adjective. Next question. Had the macroeconomic indicators been interpreted correctly at the outset, the central bank would not have raised interest rates and precipitated the subsequent liquidity crisis. So the structure of the sentence is a little complex one, but the concept is very, very commonly used. So this is the had or conditional structure. Had this happened, this would not have happened. The structure is had this happened, that would not have happened. That's the structure, and that is being followed clearly. So there is no error or no correction which is required. With this structure, we do not use should or would not have raised interest rate. Okay, so this is wrong. Precipitating. This is correct, but that is wrong. So the answer should be A. Seventh question. Don't get intimidated by the complex structure of the sentence. Look for the the simplified this grammatical error. The core philosophy of the minimalist movement dictates that the utility of a living space is defined by the absence of clutter rather than how many possessions are accumulated. So it is defined by. So it should be rather than by. So defined by the absence of clutter rather than by. So this is wrong. Dependent on, defined through. These are all wrong structures. So the answer should be D. If it is defined by this rather than by accumulation of possessions. How many possessions is also wrong, In the aftermath of the geopolitical shift, the treaty obligations of the smaller nation became similar to those of its more powerful ally, but less strictly enforced. What was less strictly enforced? That is the problem. That is something which is missing. What is less strictly enforced? Treaty obligations became similar to those of its more powerful alloy. So the obligations became similar, but what was less strictly enforced? So we have this in this. Now look at the first part here. In the aftermath of the geopolitical shift, the treaty obligation of the smaller nation were similar to those of its. So they were not similar. They became similar later on. So this is wrong. So the answer should be D. Again, a very commonly asked question, and this I have been telling you again and again with the simple examples, only that the structure of the sentence becomes a little complex and you get, haywire. So don't get intimidated by the complex structure of the sentence. Look at the part which is underlined, you'll understand. So this is a very common structure rule of the grammar. All the verbs associated with one subject will be in the same form. All right. So we generally say she loves to dance, sing, and make friends. Or she loves dancing, singing, and making friends. So these are all in ing forms. Same thing has to be applied here. If it is to mitigate systemic risk, improve transparency, and ensuring compliance, so this is wrong. This is mitigating systemic, improving transparency to ensure is wrong. Mitigation of systemic risk, improving, so this is going all the way, wherever. To mitigate, improve, and ensure. So this is absolutely correct. To mitigate, improve, ensure. Now, look at this part of the sentence. What do you feel? Many tech historians argue that the proliferation of open source software has and will continue. So, has continued or will continue? What this continue should agree with? This will or this has? Because with has, we have continued. With will, we will use continue. So, this is an absurd kind of a structure. That's the error. So what should be the correct answer? I should have has with its form of verb and will with its form of verb. So many tech historians argue that the proliferation of open source software has fundamentally altered and will continue to alter the global landscape. So this is the absolutely correct structure. Continue altering will be wrong because it has not even started to do that. And here we have wrong structures. So the answer should be C. So I think you learned a lot of grammatical error finding questions and the structures of grammatical sentences. They are often repetitively asked, but in different sentence structures. And the structure of sentence generally is a complex structure or a compound sentence which confuses you. So look for the hint which is there. If it is not only, then look for but also. If there are 3 to 4 verbs used with one subject, look for their structure. So you should be clear, you'll save a lot of time. Look for the hints in the options as well. You will be able to identify the error very quickly. Alright, otherwise we keep on searching the error and we do not find that. So the crux of today's session is that the error finding questions or find the alternative questions are not that difficult to solve. It's only the question format which creates confusion, and that's the reason why you end up wasting a lot of your time. So if you keep on practicing and practicing which concepts I told you earlier, conjunctions and prepositions, the usage of conjunctions and prepositions, most commonly asked questions. Tenses and modifiers, most commonly asked questions. Then you have this phrasal verbs and you have subject verb agreement. So these are very commonly repetitively asked questions in your exam. So if you keep solving them and practicing these concepts, probably you will be able to solve most of the grammatical questions correctly and in no time. All right. Moreover, I want to repeat it, and I would want to discuss it even further tomorrow when I come for the marathon session. Idiomatic expressions should not be from the strictly academic backgrounds, those boring outdated idioms. They are no more asked in the competitive exams. So please do not get into that outdated idiomatic expressions. Figure out things which are generally right now in practice. These are idiomatic expressions from geopolitics or economy or business and corporate world, IT field, maybe some social media kind of idiomatic expressions and slangs. These are the things which they will generally ask you in the exam, because something which we use, application based questions, is something which IIMs are known for. All right, so do not get swayed by these concepts that whether I should do idiomatic expressions from the old books or it is from what I'm teaching you. So my suggestion is be more present minded, be in the current times, and study language which people are currently using in the global scenarios. All right, because that is something which is relevant for you. Tomorrow I'll be coming with a marathon session which will be including all variety of questions, all variety of questions which are expected to come and have been asked in the 2025 paper. So I'll be coming up with more number of questions tomorrow, and we'll have more detailed discussion about how to save time and ensure accuracy. I hope these sessions are adding value to your preparation. If you really like these sessions, if you are gaining a lot of momentum and your understanding is improving with these sessions, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Like this video and share it with your friends who are also preparing for IIM Kozhikode BMS program, and help them and discuss these questions with them. All right, so this is going to add value to both of your preparation. So until we meet tomorrow, bye. Take good care of yourself.